Welcome to From Stardust to Us, in-depth conversations with thought leaders, artists, and spiritual activists, navigating the challenges of our times with integrity, joy, and purpose. I'm Bernice Marie Daly.
And I'm Linnell Hayden. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate our listeners. You can find us on YouTube, Buzzsprout, or any place where podcasts are found. If you enjoy our conversation, please help us reach more people by subscribing, liking, and commenting. So let's get into this week's conversation.
So it is my wonderful pleasure today to introduce Jennifer Morgan, president and founder of Deeptime Network. And she is an award-winning author, storyteller, and educator who's been inspired by the work of Teilhard de Chardin, Maria Montessori, Thomas Berry, Brian Swimme, and others. Her Universe Story Trilogy, Born with a Bang, From Lava to Life, and Mammals Who Morph, are used in classrooms around the world, particularly in Montessori schools, as part of the cosmic education curriculum, and have received the Teacher's Choice Award, Nautilus Semi Finalist, highest ratings from the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and endorsements from Jane Goodall, Neil deGrasse Tyson, astronaut Edgar Mitchell, Thomas Berry, Brian Swimme, and others. So we are honored and delighted to be with you today, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bernice. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So much to talk about. I thought perhaps we might begin with sort of in the beginning, but I know it's sort of like in the middle of the beginning of what drew you to the story of the universe? Why did you get involved with that? And then maybe a little bit then of how that got into deep time.
Right. Well, as with all these stories, it's so hard to know where to begin. Because in all of our lives, we have so many threads, right, that are coming together that are influencing the decisions that we make. But kind of to make it a simple version of the story, I was working in agriculture back in the 1990s. And I got to know Miriam McGillis at Genesis Farm in Blairstown. And she was running a program there that was teaching the story of the universe inside of, she called it an Earth literacy program. And it was drawing a lot of Catholic religious from all over the world. And she basically said, Jennifer, I really think you should do this program. And it was a 2-week program. I did it. I had my mind blown. And then I just kept going back and deepening my studies there with her and with Larry Edwards and Gene Edwards and numerous other teachers who were associated with that program. And then I got to know Thomas Berry as well, and Brian Swimme through all those connections. And my son was 6 years old at the time. So I would go back home and teach him what I was learning. And I didn't really realize that, how much a child would be captivated by these ideas. That was an unknown to me. But I noticed when I would tell him stories, like bedtime stories about stars being born, and stars live and stars die, just like you and I. And I could see that his eyes were just like in the dark, I'd light a candle when I tell these stories. You could see his eyes just open. And then I said, he's actually interested, in what his mother is saying. So I said, that's interesting. So I talked to his teacher, who also happened to be in the Montessori school, the Princeton Montessori school. And she said, we actually teach the cosmic story as part of the Montessori curriculum at the elementary level. And along the way, I just got this idea to write a book for children. And I went through all these different stages. For example, since I live in Princeton, New Jersey, I took 5 classes at Princeton in cosmology, astronomy, environmental evolution, anthropology, and mammal evolution, 5 courses. And I got to know the professors, and it was just so much fun. I just loved it so much. So I started writing the books, and then I'd work with children along the way, testing it out in mostly my son's school. And so then I went through these levels of getting the science, picking the pages based on the science, but also based on a mythological theme, so finding that intersection. And then working with the children to make sure that it was speaking in a voice that they would understand. And my first book came out.
Very colorful. The books are so colorful. The fabulous art and jumps right out at you. I have to say my favorite title is Mammals Who Morph.
Jennifer, I watched the YouTube video of your presentation to a group of children of Born with a Bang.
Oh, yeah.
That was so fun. You had the glitter on your face and they were so riveted. I was riveted. It was, highly recommended to people to watch or get the books. They're just really a lot of fun. And, they teach a lot, I think. And the kids love it. They were just eating it up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing the letters and the messages that I've gotten over all these many years. It's just absolutely stunning. Yeah.
That's wonderful. It must be very affirming and it
is.
Yeah.
It is. It's, it really shows that when you're following your allurement, that you can answer a need that's beyond you.
Yeah.
Where that comes together. And yeah, absolutely. So I guess you wanted to get to the part about founding of the Deeptime Network. So, I did the books. I immediately started getting invitations to give programs in schools and do teacher trainings. And so I went through this whole thing of meeting so many different people. And then I met the big history people who were, right around that same time, they started to organize national and international conferences. So I gave presentations there, got to know them. Then The Journey of the Universe came out. And of course, I knew Mary Evelyn Tucker and that whole gang. And then there's the, Gaia systems people like Lynn Margulis, so on. So then I'm saying, God, there's so much going on in all these different places, but people don't know really what's going on. And, there's not that much crossing between different worlds. So, like the Thomas Berry people really didn't know that Maria Montessori had these ideas back in the 1940s. Okay, a woman.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's so wonderful. Yeah. As you were saying, follow your allurement. And that appears to be synchronicity of events. We seem to meet people in circumstances as we're sort of bubbling around with these possibilities, and then this happens and then that happens. It's wonderful to witness that. And you've been, incredibly committed to your journey and your process. And so Deeptime emerges as what then? When did you start Deeptime Network?
It was incorporated in 2013.
Oh.
And first thing is a social network. So, when people come on, they put their profile on and they can communicate with each other. We're heading toward 3,000 members now around the world. And we started out with the professional development for teachers because that's what I had been doing. So I organized a whole bunch of different trainers. And so we got these things taped And you know what is really amazing? I mean, this is what's happening now. These trainers, some of whom have died, but we have their recordings. We have the recordings. And, you know, the teachers, they want to see them. They want to see these recordings of the real classics, like Betsy Coe from the Houston Montessori Center, like um, uh, Matthew Michael Dorr. He died not that long ago. But we have a fantastic training video that he created with us.
Wow.
I'm just so glad that we made those recordings.
Right.
You know, that's why it's great what you're doing, you know, to just record people, speak, to hold this wisdom, share it.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to touch on the new video that has just been released by the Deeptime Network called The Cosmic Signal. Oh, I think it's a new video. I think you have a new series coming out revolving around that video. But in the video, the Deeptime Network has identified a microwave that is vibrating throughout the universe. And you're also quoted as saying that we have a new story. So I'm wondering, are those two connected? And if so, what does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 1964, in Holmdel, New Jersey, at Bell Labs, two engineers they were hoping to improve telecommunications at the horn antenna that had been built there as part of the Bell Labs work. They accidentally stumbled into the cosmic background radiation. They did not know what it was, though.
Right.
They did not know what it was. But Princeton physicists had been working on the same thing. In fact, they had been looking for it. They had been looking for this radiation, but hadn't been able to find it. Meanwhile, these two engineers, you know, accidentally stumble into it, and they went on to win the Nobel Prize. Okay, now what's the significance of this? The significance is that it was proof that the universe began as a fireball, and that exploded, and that the universe is continuing to expand now. But the point is, we do not live in a static universe. We live we're part of, we come out of, we are part of it. It's our source and our destiny, an evolving, transforming, totally integrated universe. And that's a mind-blowingly new story.
Right.
Yes.
Because up until then, you know, the idea was the universe has always been here.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was done. It was like a machine coming out of the earlier Descartes and Newton and such, understanding
Exactly.
of how it worked.
Exactly.
Doesn't seem to be that way.
Well, I can see how that would be mind-blowing, because in our modern culture, we feel as if we are separate from even nature here on Earth, you know, using Earth as a resource and whatnot, instead of being part of this web of life. So to expand that to the universe, you know, would be pretty mind-blowing. And that is a new story.
Absolutely, Linnell. That really is such a huge distinction between an old story and a new story. In the old story, you know, we saw the human as with this hard line, you know, this hard line between the human and everything else. But
Yeah.
this new story, these scientific discoveries just blow that apart.
Mm.
You just cannot live in that world anymore because it's not connected to reality.
So can I just ask a real quick, sorry, Bernice, I know you're chomping
Go
at the
ahead, go right ahead.
a quick follow-up on the children. How is this being received, and how do you feel that, this new story, I think it's in a way innate in humans to feel connected. I mean, the indigenous feel connected to the earth and nature, and the children, they were just on the video I was watching, were just, I mean, their eyes were white as saucers. And so what's the importance of reconnecting to our not just earth-based story, but perhaps cosmic story, and what sort of, what kind of feedback are you getting from the children and their parents with regards to that, and how things might change?
Well, I think for starters, it gives you the sense that we're part of a huge adventure.
Mm.
And just that shift from, oh, I'm in this kind of really depressing world where everything's falling apart and there's no creativity and I have no hope,
Yeah.
for a future. This just turns that over. And then you can recontextualize, the horrible stuff that's going on, because you can see it inside of this much, much bigger picture. And so what does that do for us? I mean, there's been a lot of science now showing that experiencing awe, we humans need awe. We need awe to live. It's like we need that for food. Okay. And if we don't have it, we're going to get really depressed, and we're going to lose our zest for life. So having a sense of awe that's grounded in reality, we don't have to make this stuff up just to get a sense of awe. All you have to do is look at reality and really understand the depths of reality. And that is going to unleash the awe more than anything.
Mm.
It's like when I was in Mexico for the eclipse last year, with a group, and we had a shaman and everything. It was amazing. And the thing that really hit me, we were all lying on the ground, as we were looking up, with the proper glasses and all that. Like, holy moly, I am actually on a planet.
Yeah.
I'm actually on a planet. So it's, how do we experience that? Are we actually really experiencing it? Because it's one thing to kind of, look at a picture of the solar system in a book, right?
Yeah.
But it's a different thing when you really get it, where the universe has come from, where we humans are in this time dimensional context, and how totally dependent and part of this bigger picture we are. So then it's less about just me driving my life forward and more about what's being pulled forward, inside of me and everything else.
Mm.
And that's a much more profound place to come from. It gives you a lot of meaning and resilience.
Mm. Yeah.
And
Brings up a couple of things for me as you were speaking. This sense of, what do you actually mean by the phrase deep time? How can people sort of connect with that? I was feeling the connection as you were describing your story of looking up. Can you say a few words about that for our listeners? What is deep about time?
great. It's such a good question, Bernice. Thank you. Okay, so the phrase deep time, which is two different words originally, deep and time, originally was connected with geology. When geologists began to discover uh, fish fossils up in the mountains, they said, why are these fish fossils right here in the mountains, right?
Right.
And it was at a time when we thought the Earth was like 3,000 years old. And so it became clear that, the Earth is much older than we thought. So they came up with the term deep time as opposed to more recent time.
Mm-hmm.
And then we on the network have taken that term, which is 2 words, and pushed those 2 words together, deep time, capitalized the D so that it's a term, and expanded it to include the whole cosmic story, beyond the story of Earth. Because you really can't isolate Earth out of the universe, you know? So Thomas Berry used the phrase, we're in a time dimensional universe. So we're in a deep time dimensional universe. I mean, the universe is 13.8 billion years old.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking about.
Beyond what any of us can really grasp, really.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we were to look at how long humans have been around on planet Earth in that 13.8 billion years, we're like smidgy of a second at the end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the whole point. It's not like the universe is just something out there.
Yeah, that's it. We feel separate. Like we look up and, having that epiphany where, hey, I'm lying down on the ground on this planet that's spinning in this universe. The universe isn't something way out there. It's here. I'm
exactly.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And sometimes when I look out and you see all these fabulous new pictures we have from the web and so forth, which are just mind-boggling, talk about awe, mystery, and just takes you, it's just, yeah, I don't even have words, no, we don't have words for this, really, and I think that we, us, everything that we really know in any way is on this one little tiny little thing hanging in the middle of nowhere. I mean, everything is just it's all like held by magic. It appears, the amazing movement of everything and what appears to be in sync, and every little change. What do they say? A butterfly wing here and weather across the planet, how intricately everything is connected. When I look out and I see pictures of us in even just the solar system, or take some of the videos that I think you have used as well. You start here, like at your house, and then it goes back and back and back and back and back and back and back, and takes you on this journey, and then brings you back in. It's just, it's awesome. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, which Linnell kind of touched on a little bit before, and as you did as well, we are living in what often referred to as challenging times. And there's a lot of estrangement that people are feeling, and a lot of anxiety, a lot of loss, a lot of fear. And some of the ways that people may have coped with some of these things in the past has been through religious traditions, which are not necessarily meeting people where they are, at least many people where they are now. And so they're feeling this overwhelm and loneliness and fear. I'm imagining, what is this doing to our sense of belonging? I think we have a huge longing to belong. And we see that as, in our own, relationships, and build that out into family and community and so forth. But I know I have that enormous kind of feeling inside of a strong, strong sense of really wanting to feel I belong to something much bigger than me, but that I am really belong to that I'm not extraneous either. Um, how does this story help us with that? Have you found that people have talked like that, or am I the only crazy person walking around?
Everyone I encounter talks about belonging.
Mm.
In fact, our Deep Time Leadership program that we have, it's a 9-month program. And one of the things we hear most from people is, I finally feel like I'm home and I know I belong. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's there's, we don't realize how alienated we are until you have an experience of real belonging, because you're just used to it being that way, of alienated, but not necessarily thinking there is a different way. That old saying, you don't know what you don't know. And we had this shaman from Peru who came into the leadership program recently, and just the picture of her world and how she relates to the earth, Mother Earth. Oh my gosh. You just say, we in the West do not even know what we're missing. We do not know what we're missing. We are so broken. We just do not know. Until you see something that is a radical alternative.
Which is old. It's very old. If this is a shaman coming from a older indigenous culture expression, then this also does something to our sense of time in terms of connection to these older traditions that are a kind of ointment and healing for us, but needs to be, I think, kind of translated into 21st century.
Exactly.
That's
what I feel we're doing, because it's ironic that the science, which was one of the things that split us, but it has this potential to heal, if it's talked about in certain ways, and of course, Thomas Berry talked about the fourfold wisdom traditions. So you have the indigenous, you have science, you have women, because women's wisdom has been largely left out, although of the culture, but it's coming back in. And then the classical religions. So, we need to integrate these things into the, and it is happening. It is definitely happening. I mean, I went to the last Parliament of World Religions, where I spoke with Mary Evelyn Tucker, and oh my gosh, I couldn't believe my eyes. There's so many groups, religious groups out there that are, earth-centered, they're pagan-centered, they're, the classical religions are, they're playing I wouldn't say minor, definitely not minor, but there's a lot rising. And then, of course, on our Deeptime Network, we have a lot of Catholic religious who they have, of course, their own religious background, and they're integrating, these indigenous ways. They're integrating the story of the universe. This is the calling of the time, really, is to do this integration.
Yeah, I think there's a real thirst for it, a sort of a return home. We've sort of become separated from just our innate human need for groups, a clan, our own people to belong. I'm wondering, do you see cosmology as having as a spiritual practice as well as scientific?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, so cosmology is, the study of our origin and the study of our relationship to the universe. So it's not only studying the origin, but it's studying our relationship. What is our relationship? What is our relationship to the whole? That's a fundamentally religious, spiritual, inquiry. I mean, really, which is what the word religion comes from, is to bind back to source, which is cosmology. So, we're binding back to our origin, we're binding to the whole. So we're not just this little, atomized piece that's rolling around without any sense of connection to the whole.
This is the end of From Stardust to Us Cosmic Signal Part 1 with Jennifer Morgan. Please return next time for Cosmic Signal Part 2 as Jennifer Morgan discusses the healing dimensions of the new cosmic story.